is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.
Are you ready to travel? We got all the travel buzz here on Smart People, Travelwise with Alvin Adriano on PHLV Radio.
Well, I hope you all are having a wonderful 2022. It's absolutely a fantastic year, and I hope each one of you are enjoying the start to this year. It is what we make it, so we want to make sure you take the opportunity to maximize your time and check things off your bucket list. But mabuhay to all of our viewers all across the globe. Thank you so much for all of your support. And we're 2 weeks into the new year, and we are absolutely rocking. So if you're just tuning in, my name is Alvin Adriano, CEO of Travelwise International, and I welcome to our podcast, Smart People Travelwise. Here we chat with travel professionals and learn about what's going on throughout the travel industry. But first, if you're watching this live, please hashtag live. And if you're watching this on the replay, please hashtag replay. Also comment where you're watching from so we can highlight all of you, all of our viewers. And don't forget to catch our show every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time or 3 p.m. East Coast time, PHLV Radio, available on Facebook, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Or even better, catch us on the PHLV Radio app, available on all iOS and Apple devices. Well, with this new year, I know many of us have many resolutions or have many goals to take every opportunity to see the world or find new ways to see things. We know we gather more perspective and see different destinations in a different view. Honestly, I think it's an important way for all of us to discover new destinations, new brands, and maybe find new passions. Which brings me to our guest today. We all know that during the pandemic that the community is a very big part of what we learned is important in developing long-lasting relationships, which is a big part of how brands and companies are focusing on right now. How to connect people beyond travel. Well, instead of resorts, their properties are called villages, which I thought was a very neat way, a way to connect with others in a whole perspective. And which is why I wanted to start this new year with our guest today to shed some light on a known brand, yet still mysterious in their ways. A little quick bio on Club Med. It's an all-inclusive concept offering about, I think, 70 premium resorts in stunning locations all around the world, including North America, South America, Caribbean, Asia, Africa, Europe. In Europe. Each Club Med resorts have really authentic local style, really upscale accommodations, superior programming, activities, children programs, gourmet dinner, and of course, warm, friendly service from its world-renowned staff and legendary hospitality. This all-encompassing energy and diverse backgrounds. They operate on more than 30 countries and continue to maintain its authentic Club Med spirit with an international staff of more than 23,000 employees from 110 different nationalities. Led by its pioneering spirit, Club Med continues to grow and adapt to each market with 3 to 5 new resorts opening, renovations per year, including a new alpine ski resort annually. And we'll talk about that later. So today we have Justin Heckman, Director of Sales for Club Med, to talk a little bit more about the brand and what they're doing in 2022. So without further ado, please welcome Justin Heckman, Director of Sales of Club Med. Hey, Justin.
Thanks, Alvin. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it.
No worries. I love having new people. And again, we love talking to new guests about what's going on in travel. I introduced Club Med, but could you spend like a couple minutes and just talk about your background and where you came from and how you've been involved in travel?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I think, and thanks for the great introduction for Club Med. You're right on the money. We've been around now for over 70 years. So we're really the pioneer in all-inclusive resorts. I think that, as you said, I think a lot of people know the name, but sometimes have a perception of what Club Med is based on what we used to do in the old days. So it's a little bit different now. As for me personally, I mean, I started out, my background actually is varied. I got into hospitality actually through managing restaurants, and then wound up living in Paris. and started working for Club Med there in the contact center on the phone, taking reservations. And over the years, my job has changed. I left Club Med for a little while. I came back. I left. I came back. This is actually the fourth time they've hired me, so it's kind of an unusual journey. But I keep coming back, and it's a special place with a lot of fantastic people who work here. Now I oversee the sales team in the USA. So we have, as you mentioned, we're very global for sure. So we have offices in countries worldwide with over 70 resorts. But I'm here in the US. So.
That's awesome. I always talk about the resumes of travel professionals, because we do evolve. We start as travel advisors and move around in different industries, vertically, horizontally, whatever. But I mean, it's also with the evolution of Club Med, because I know they had that party mentality before when they first started in Europe, and now they're more family oriented, more 4 or 5 star hotels. So they evolved too and developed their brand over the course of these 70 years.
Yeah, it's a whole interesting history with Club Med, and it actually started originally after World War II, and somebody had this idea. It was this guy by the name of Gerard Blitz, who was actually a Belgian water polo player, and was actually also a master yogi, and was one of the first people to introduce yoga into Europe. Anyway, he had this idea that people would want to get together and go on vacations in the Mediterranean. The abridged version is that he partnered with this other gentleman who had surplus army tents, and they actually used to go and set up these tents in the Mediterranean and bring people together. It was really the need. It was a time when I think he felt that there was a real need for healing, and for people had jobs and money to spend on vacations, and things were really changing. So it's also kind of an interesting time. When I started with Club Med, it was just about the time that we in the 2000s, where we really changed direction, and up until actually the 90s, Club Med was a not-for-profit company, and so now we're actually a publicly traded. But it's I think in the early 2000s, our new president Henri Giscard d'Estaing came out and really had this concept to move the brand a little bit more upmarket. In the U.S. in the 70s and the 80s, people thought, we used to have this brand thing called the antidote to civilization. And if you ask people about Club Med, they still remember that, where it was, to your point, kind of the party place, and it was a little wild and crazy. Martinique, people remember, and we had the beats to pay for drinks at the bar and stuff like that. So we changed the times. We're moving a lot more upmarket now, and really developing higher end properties, but all inclusive, still trying to keep the Club Med feel, the vibe with our staff, with the activities, with the feeling in the resort. I think that's the biggest thing for me. Is it's one of those things. You can have a beautiful building, a lot of space. You can have all these things, but I think what really sets Club Med apart, and especially for me, is that every resort has a soul, has a spirit, a vibe to it, and it's really special that way. So,
I love it. I love it, and I think I do want to touch on something that you mentioned. I mean, for the bragging rights of course, like you said, pioneer, and when we think of the first and all-inclusive market, you think of other competitors in the Caribbean. But your destinations, I mean, you're in national parks, rainforests, beaches, alpine mountains, ruin areas. You guys are all over, taking the all-inclusive market in a different way. Like how many places? I mean, I mentioned these places, but how many unique places are you guys in? I mean, what are some of your favorites?
Yeah, we're over. I mean, we have 70, as I mentioned, 70 resorts worldwide. I think, I've been to some really interesting Club Meds over the years too, and some, unfortunately, a couple we don't have anymore. But some we still do. But we have places in exotic destinations like the Maldives. We're in Bali. We are in Africa. So we have properties in Morocco. We're in Marrakesh. We have a beautiful Marrakesh resort, Senegal, which is actually one of the more unusual ones that I've been to. Actually, fascinating place. We're still developing some other South America, Brazil. Yeah, we're really a global country, or sorry, global enterprise. I think the other thing that we've really realized that we're very good at, and you mentioned it, is ski. So that's something that we're really growing in the ski market, where it's easy to put together a ski package. You don't have to do all the different pieces.
Yeah.
It's a great value. We just opened our first new resort in North America and Canada, just outside Quebec City, Club Med Charlevoix, which is a mountain resort. And now we're also kind of realizing that, I know we'll talk a little bit about some of the changes in the pandemic, but one thing that's really come to the forefront, I think, for people is, how do we have a really open air outdoor experience? And what we found is there's been a huge demand for mountain vacations, not necessarily during ski time, but even in the summer months where, you go hiking, you go out mountain biking, you can have all these great activities in the mountains and still have a great resort experience too. So.
That's awesome. Honestly, you mentioned it, and we're literally in the snowstorm right here in the Northeast corridor with the white snow blanketing the area. And it's pretty for the first couple of days until you have to shovel it, But I was thinking about your new opening for Quebec, Charlevoix, right? In December 3rd, I think.
Charlevoix, yeah.
Yeah. And I saw some of the reviews. I heard some of the travel advisors talking about it. I think it's a 302 guest room, 25 suite exclusive collection space, right? Looking over St. Lawrence River. Yeah, it looks like a beautiful property. I can't wait to see it, because that's the first all-inclusive in Canada for you guys, right?
Yes, it is actually. It's an interesting place. I've been to some of the French Alpine resorts, and they're fantastic. But I have to say that, one of the things that they really captured with this property is, it's a unique location for one thing, but they really incorporated a lot of the local culture into the resort, which I know sounds kind of strange, because sometimes we think of all-inclusive resorts as, okay, well, transport this little pod of particularly in the Caribbean, Mexico, a little pod of, U.S. to another location. And, we really try to bring in some of the local feel. So you can really sense that. They've done a great job with that. And it's a unique ski area where it's one of the only places in the world where you can ski with a water view, just because of the way you're looking out over the St. Lawrence Seaway as you're coming down the slope. So it's a really, really special place for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited. I constantly look when we were getting on the call, I always do my research just to figure out what, some places to talk about. And some of the things that they talked about was the food, like maple syrup carrots, rainbow trout, chorizo. I was like, man, I'm getting hungry. And, that's the best way when you travel: food, music, dance. Those are all symbolic to where we are. And I thought that was really cool. I also saw, and I wanted to verify with you, you guys have hammams at the ski villages?
The steam rooms, yeah, we do it. Not all of them, but some of them do actually have them. Absolutely, yep.
Oh wow, that's awesome. I mean, after a long day skiing on the slopes, just to get wind down, scrub down, that's awesome. I would love to do that.
Absolutely, it's the best part.
And I've never considered it either, but I know, I went on the website and checked out some of the promotions. You guys are having some great air inclusive promotions from Washington, New York, and Boston, especially for April this year. And I thought that was great because, like you said, people are looking for different experiences. And so any of the viewers now who are looking for different, a way to get away, not looking also for beaches, can look for a ski package that's so combinable. And it had nonstop flights with Air Canada. I thought that was very, very cool.
Yeah, it's great. I think, we're hoping that obviously this year, the air service has been a little unusual in many places. So we actually are offering air service into Montreal as well. It's a longer transfer, but again, to get to Quebec City from some destinations, it's a connection. So you're going to have to weigh out whether you'd rather transfer to Quebec City or take the transfer from Montreal. So, but it is it's certainly doable.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all in the mode of like we're just adapting to what's happening. I mean, if you want to travel, it is possible. You just have to, it's a little bit more hoops that you have to cross, but it is possible. I mean, and that leads me to my next question. I mean, travel really evolved during the pandemic. Has Club Med evolved through this challenging time, or did they really had a great plan already in place before it?
Well, I mean, it's certainly been a change, and I think one of the things that has been interesting for us is that, because we have worldwide destinations, we've been able to have very different experiences across the globe and share that with kind of best practices. When this whole thing started, we actually have several resorts in China. And so those were the first ones that had to close down, but they were also the first ones to reopen. And so we were actually able to get some early learnings from those properties and how to operate safely and how to manage guest flow and stuff like that, so that, we could then share it with the other properties. So when the time came for us to reopen some of the other, resorts around the world, that we already had, plans in place. We had a safety and security committee basically made up of medical professionals and security experts to really think about, what are going to be best practices in all the resorts. So I think, having that global footprint was a huge plus for us, for sure. I think it also, in many cases accelerated some trends and things that we were kind of looking to do anyway. For example, one of the things about Club Med is that, the main meals are what we call marketplace. I don't like the idea of a buffet as where you're going down the line, and it's not that. We have chef stations where they're, making and plating things for you. And so, this whole idea of getting away from that into kind of still servings, it was a necessity. And so we really, rolled that out across, the resorts, even more so than we had been doing previously. So it's a little bit of a different experience. But, when you go up to get something, you're getting this really nice presented plate that looks beautiful, like from any restaurant, really. There's fantastic food that way. So, we've had to do some adaptations that way for sure. We had to put in some safety protocols in the resorts where, in some cases we limited resort capacity. We, complying with mask mandates and all, extra cleaning and all that kind of thing too. So, there's certainly been some changes that way. But I think the thing that, again, as we've evolved over the years, we've tried to make these changes while keeping the spirit and the soul of the property. And that's been, I think, somewhat more challenging to do during this pandemic. But I think, we've still been getting great feedback by and large from the resort, from clients who have been. And so I've been really, really happy to see that even despite everything, that we still kind of kept our identity through all of this.
No, that's awesome. I mean, again, being a global brand, you're right. I didn't realize, you had properties in China, and that's amazing having that intel before everyone else. And so quick tip for every travel professional, see what Club Med's doing so that you'll be on the right track in the future if this ever happens again.
Pioneering, yep. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like you said, one of the things we try to be pioneers in places. I mean, certainly, and this has been one area I think we've really done, not to pat ourselves in the back too much, but I think I've been really, really proud of the way I think that we've handled, some of the operational issues with operating a resort in this reality, for sure. I think, we certainly tried to be pioneers in terms of development, but there's always, we try to do it in everywhere we can. So.
Yeah, I love it. And I think now with the hospitality industry really innovating so rapidly, like I always, with the safety and sanitation, digital checkout, now you can open doors with your phone, you can order food anywhere. Do you see some of these trends staying after the pandemic, or, do you see any trends for this to stay for the foreseeable future?
Yes, I mean, for sure. I think, one of the trends that certainly, to your point, has been, digital and touch-free interactions. And I think that's something we already had a campaign to increase that just because of guest demand. But, that the pandemic, I think, kind of fast forwarded a lot of things. So, for example, to check in, we already had an app on our phones, the Club Med app. When people go, they can pull up their bookings and all that kind of thing. But, I think we've really seen an increased need and demand for being able to communicate with, communicate with the front desk, for example, or book spa appointments online and stuff like that without having to go somewhere or see someone. So I think, those digital trends, those kind of self-service, touch-free trends are something that will certainly continue, I foresee.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, we're seeing tons of new trends: social media, community, sustainability. And we talk about that, about how the traveler sentiment are changing the climate of what their preferences are. I do definitely want to give you guys shouts. Club Med, Dominican Republic, Eco Resorts awarded Green Globe certification.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and Playa Esmeralda too, first certification. So I wanted to touch this too because this is a important, I guess, thing for new travelers: sustainability and social responsibility. How does that play in part in Club Med's ongoing future?
It's a really big part, actually. One of the things I think that I would say in terms of our overall development strategy is really to create sustainable development. So, in terms of our overall developments, we generally tend to build low-rise, low-density. So we're not building high-rise buildings as a general rule. They're very spread out. So, from a guest experience point of view, it's certainly people have a lot more room to spread out. From a sustainability perspective, I think Meaches is a great example of that. We really focused on developing it as sustainably as possible. It's about an hour and 20 minutes north of Punta Cana. It's this beautiful area on an untouched stretch of beach. There's no other hotels up there right now. So we really felt we had a duty to make sure that we did everything we could to build a resort and maintain as much of the environment as possible. So, for example, when we did the development, we did palm trees. We picked them up and moved them. When the construction was done, we moved them back. We tried to grow all of the plants, or as many of the plants for the landscaping as possible, right on site there, so things didn't have to be shipped in. We're working on managing, for example, in some of the resorts now, we have cameras actually that watch when waste comes in, so that we can see, for example, if there's some days that there's more waste than others, we can actually track. If there's items on the menu, for example, that people don't like, or, there's just, we can just kind of get a sense of what works and what doesn't. We really want to reduce the amount of waste. We have a campaign called Bye Bye Plastic, which, is getting rid of single-use plastics in all the resorts, no straws, we're really all that kind of thing worldwide. And again, with 70 resorts, it's a significant undertaking, but it's also, I think, really important. Working on making sure that we have the most efficient chillers in all the resorts, solar power, increasing our solar power usage, particularly at places like Meaches and some of the Caribbean properties, but worldwide, so it really is a big piece of it. And then in terms of our impact in the community, we have the Club Med Foundation. We really do try to give back to local communities, providing, in some cases, Punta Cana is a great example where, in some cases they have, they were doing a program for a while where they had local kids coming in and being able to use like the tennis courts during off times and off seasons. They so they get sports instruction and stuff like that. So in all the communities we live and work in, we really try to make an impact for sure. Even during the pandemic, we were able to, donate some supplies and PPE to local communities from our stock globally too, and using our infrastructure. So
that's awesome. I really love that. I mean, again, being a global company, I mean, having properties, tourism really ties in all the globe together. I mean, people don't see how much tourism affects the global economy, but it does. I mean, our hands are intertwined with so many different industries within those nations, and I think it's so commendable by you guys to be able to do these things to keep people in business. And maybe you guys should open a Club Med in Philippines.
Hey, it could happen. You never know.
Maybe in the future. So again, but these are the things that you have to recognize as an ever evolving industry. We always have to figure out what are the new trends coming in, and and being able to do that from what we talked about when we first started is about the evolutions of brands and how they connect to their audience and target markets. And I think that's really important and commendable how you guys have done that over these 70 years. So
thank you.
Oh, do you guys have anything else coming in the pipeline 2022, 2023? I know you guys are opening resorts and renovating them.
Yeah, we have a couple of things. I mean, to your point, we were, one of the interesting things, we were in a place where we were opening 3 to 5 new resorts a year before the pandemic. I think actually, even during everything, we've been able to open properties and do some renovations and continue. And now we're kind of back on track to move forward with some other projects too. 2023, the next opening, I believe, is coming up soon, is Marbella in Spain. So we have a property opening in Marbella. Obviously, I mentioned we just opened Canada. We are doing some renovations to actually our Senegal property, Cap Skiing. We have a ski resort, Pragelato, which is will be undergoing some renovations. And we just announced quietly announced, but announced nonetheless, we have are working on a new project in the U.S. Actually, it's more like 2024. But we're looking at building a mountain resort in Utah in 2024. So that is, we're really, really excited about that.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really interesting. I would love to see what that's all
about. That's just a sampling. We have a whole bunch of other things coming up, but those are the ones I can talk about for now.
Hey, you heard it from here. So awesome. Hey, I want, there's people have so many emotions going on about right now with the pandemic, but we always try to keep positivity and hope up. So what was one great thing that you can say out of the pandemic that you were really, really was a eye opener or a highlight for this time?
Yeah, I think it was interesting to see that, to your point, I think that, particularly families have recognized the importance of, taking the moments to get together. I mean, I know that, I actually just went on a trip with my mother and my wife, which we had put off for many, many years. And it was kind of like, you just don't know when you're going to get to be able to go and spend time with people. And so, we had a chance to travel. And I think that that's something that I've seen a lot more of, where people are like thinking about not putting off those moments. So that's been really, really positive. And I see that trend continuing into the coming year for sure, if not beyond. And I just think that everybody, I think that overall, the as your point about being adaptable, I think that that's something we've all had to do a lot more. And I've seen that, people are generally more willing to, okay, cut me some slack here. We got to figure out how to do this and work together. So.
Yeah, I love all that. I mean, one thing we say in the travel industry is to embrace uncertainty because, as we know, things change all the time. But this is the first time in history that I can think of that the whole world is now experiencing uncertainty and how to really, we live in this world. And this is something as the travel professionals, we just learn to do. We just, okay, well, what do we do next? So I think the whole world's starting to embrace it and trying to understand what it is, but to take advantage of the time. Like you mentioned, I saw my niece for the first time. She's 2 years old after 2 years. And I saw the pictures when she was a baby, and now I see her now. It's just like, wow, so much time has passed. But again, you want to always take advantage of the time that you have now. So with that said, Justin, you have any more last minute thoughts or final thoughts that you want to share for people traveling or viewers of the show?
Yeah, I think just kind of, to follow up on that exact point. I mean, do take advantage of the chances to spend time with the people you care about. And really, I think that's, this is the time as our founder said, the time to be happy is now, and the place to be happy is here. So, it's take advantage of every opportunity, and again, recognizing that everything is not always working as smoothly as possible. So, take the time to do your preparation. If you are traveling somewhere, make sure that you've figured out what documents you need, and check back from time to time because things change, and just kind of be ready to accept it as an adventure. And recognize that everyone is doing their best to get you where you want to go, and have patience, have grace, and enjoy the ride.
Well, thank you so much, Justin. I really appreciate it. It's like, I always refer back to, it's like when people used to travel before the internet. They had to do their research, they had to do their responsibility, try to figure out, have the guidebooks, like this is where I'll go next. It's kind of going back in full circle. Like, yeah, you have to be responsible where you're going. But I love it. Well,
and I'll just say that, obviously, travel advisors are really an important part of that. But it is a partnership too. I mean, certainly rely on your travel advisor to help, but make sure that you've done your work too.
Love it. Love the plug. Thank you so much, Justin. We'll have to have you on the show again and definitely give us updates on what's going on with Club Med.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
Take care, Justin. Awesome. Oh my goodness. Well, Justin's always an amazing person to have on. It's always exciting to bring new ideas, new destinations to the show. And I've always been a beach person, but you know what? Looking at some of these photos of these French Alp villas and villages, there's anything that I want to do is I want to learn to ski. So I will definitely think out the box and definitely check out Club Med. And honestly, seeing how the Club Med branch transitions from its concept from party to now family villages encompassing 4 to 5 star properties all around the world, it's amazing. Even the ski, when I was going through and looking at all the inclusions, the ski lifts, the lessons and the accommodations, they're very, very affordable for everybody. So I'm sold on the idea of an exceptional, all-inclusive vacation anywhere outside of the parts of the world, not only the Caribbean. But anyways, thank you again for all of our viewers who are able to spend a few minutes of their day to spend more about the travel industry. You can always reach out our award-winning travel agency, Travelwise International, at 301-248-8898, or visit us on the web at www.itravelwise.com.
Is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio. PHLV Radio. Just like a friend from back home. This is your Filipino radio experience in Las Vegas. PHLV Radio.